Hello, my name is Adriano, and I'm going to speak about mind mapping along with my classmates Per and Juliana. Mind mapping is one of the best ways to capture ideas through visual ways. We should see a mind map as a kind of diagram in which there is a central idea which is connected to a lot of things related to the central idea. Metaphorically speaking, we could imagine a mind map as a kind of tree whose stem would be this central idea and all its branches would be the related ideas. We are going to present today three articles also which explain in what extent mind mappings can be useful tools and effective tools for learning processes and for teaching practices.
I will now present an article called Enhancing Freshman Students' Writing Skills with a Mind Mapping Software. The article describes an experiment to study whether or not a mind mapping software would help students of English as a foreign language improve their writing skills compared to the students who did not use the mind mapping software. 86 female students were tested. They were all on the first semester of the translation program at the King Saud University in Saudi Arabia. The students were divided into two groups. One was a control group and the other one was the experimental group. The control group only had in-class instruction based on the textbook, but the experimental group had the same in-class instruction and furthermore had a mind mapping software to help them brainstorm and organize and connect their ideas. At the very beginning of the experiment, both groups were pre-tested with the same test and no significant differences were found in the results. The in-class instruction was based on a book called Interactions 1, a writing process skills book. The book has 12 chapters and each chapter was covered in class one by one chapter each week. All of the students from both groups were required to do all of the exercises in the book, and by the end of each chapter the students wrote one paragraph essays for practice.
This is a mind map created by one of the students in the process of writing an essay about natural disasters. And as you can see, all the students' main ideas are organized on the right side of the mind map with all the supporting detail, while on the left side we have the vocabulary divided into word classes that could help the student write a better essay.
At the end of the semester, both groups of students were post-tested with the same test, a test that required the students to write an essay focusing on the elements taught in the in-class instruction that both groups received. The results of the post-test compared to the pre-test showed that both groups of students had improved greatly because of the in-class instruction, but significant differences were found between the experimental group that used the mind mapping software and the control group that didn't. The results from the post-test showed that the experimental group made higher gains than the control group, and it was concluded that the use of the mind mapping software was the cause, as the students from the experimental group wrote essays that were better structured and with more detailed ideas than the students from the control group.
So I'm going to talk about an article that is called The Effects of Mind Mapping Activities on Students' Motivation. And the research here talks about how three different types of mind mapping activities can affect students' motivation. So participants were 40 students from an undergraduate course of psychology in an American university, and they picked the three types of activities according to levels of social mediation. After each mind mapping activity, the students completed a questionnaire including rating these activities according to their perceptions of learning, enjoyment, and preferences. So, to measure the students' motivation, the researchers used the music model of academic motivation. It was developed in 2009 by Jones, and it is formed by 5 different components. Here's a picture of an explanation of what is the music model in a mind map. The first question addressed in this research asked, For each level of social mediation, how highly do students rate the music model components and their effort? All the values for all of the components were above the midpoint of the considered scale in the research, which indicates that students believed that the mind mapping activities were somehow empowering and useful, that they were capable of succeeding, that they were somehow interested in the activities, that the activities were important at least in some extension, and the instructor always or almost always cared about their academic success. The second question asked, is there a difference in the students' scores for the music model components and effort ratings among the different levels of social mediation? The results revealed that there were no statistical differences between them. So the researchers said that based on this information solely, we could conclude that the three activities were equally effective at motivating students, which also seems to be a little bit too superficial. The third question asked, to what extension are these music model component scores statistically correlated to the effort ratings? The results showed that all of the components, regardless the level of social mediation, were correlated with effort. Finally, the fourth question asked, why do students prefer certain math activities over others? And finally, the fourth question asked, why do students prefer certain types of mind mapping activities over others? Actually, no clear pattern was revealed in the results, but the only ranking that more of the half of the students agreed on was that map 3 was more enjoyable than maps 1 and 2. Of course, we had some limitations in this study, as the authors admitted. For example, the group of 40 people was sufficient but not very large. Also, we have to keep in mind that we are talking about undergraduate students from a psychology course. And of course, all the data collected was self-reported. However, the researchers state that future studies should consider other types of data collection. So one implication we could get from that is that instructors should vary their activities in order to increase students' enjoyment on the studies. Another implication is that instructors should give the choice of students. Students should be able to choose the activity among a variety of types of mind mapping activities. By doing so, the instructors would give them control over the learning process, empowerment, and this itself should lead to greater engagement. And a third implication is, because of this trend, especially in higher education, to make students more active learners, teachers and professors, they might think that this is simply putting students together in groups. Instead, the results in this study show that the activities that the students felt they learned most from were not always the ones they felt they enjoyed the most or preferred. Hence, the instructors should be careful when placing students together about what this might affect on their learning process and their motivation.
Graphic organizers such as mind mapping have been used for a variety of purposes. Yet there are not so many studies dedicated to determine the effectiveness of this tool in learning processes. Therefore, I shall present a case study that was conducted with 15 students from a science course in the 8th grade and report on their perceptions and on their teachers' perceptions in relation to the effectiveness of mind mapping. Students were gradually introduced to the concept of mind mapping. First, they were presented the concepts and asked and assigned by their teachers to develop a mind mapping, including ideas that were related to their school, not specifically related to the science course. Gradually, they started to insert symbols and relate the symbols to words and concepts, and only after teachers realized that they were mastering the usage of mind mapping, they were then allowed to start making their own mind mappings in relation to the course. Through a questionnaire, the authors of the study could obtain very positive responses in relation to the students' perceptions. Students found the usage of mind mapping very fun, interesting, and motivating. They related the usage of mind mapping for a variety of purposes in learning sciences, but most of them actually could return with very positive responses. Even the negative responses were very ambivalent, because even when students declared not having actually fun when working on mind mappings, they reported that they could learn a lot of things in relation to the subject itself. In general, all kinds of students actually enjoy the developing of mind mapping, both individually or in group. That's why actually the effective aspect of the use of mind mapping is very relevant also for the students' positive perceptions. In relation to teachers, they all found this tool very effective too, compared actually to more traditional strategies that they had been used until then, such as note-taking, discussions. Actually, they could also have a lot of good outcomes out of these subjects, but they didn't feel as much as in this study that the students actually were feeling having fun and enjoying this strategy. Yet, even considering these positive responses, not all students actually felt comfortable and enjoyed and could really feel that they were able to understand the concepts of certain things in relation to the science matter. In general, all kinds of students actually enjoy the developing of mind mapping, both individually or in group. That's why actually the effective aspect of the use of mind mapping is very relevant also for the students' positive perceptions. In relation to teachers, they all found this tool very effective too, compared actually to more traditional strategies that they had been used until then, such as note-taking, discussions. Actually, they could also have a lot of good outcomes out of these subjects, but they didn't feel as much as in this study that the students actually were feeling having fun and enjoying this strategy. Yet, even considering these positive responses, not all students actually felt comfortable and enjoyed and could really feel that they were able to understand the concepts of certain things in relation to the science matter. Teachers, for example, they found very difficult to relate symbols and pictures or illustrations to concepts which involve specific ideas from science, which were all represented by specific terms or more technical and complex terms too. In general, the interplay between graphics and words is very cognitively demanding too, so not actually teachers felt like comfortable making use of mind mapping to explain the concepts of the course. So, in conclusion, they realized that mind mapping would be actually more a helpful tool which could be applied on a very specific and certain context rather than throughout the whole course or throughout all the activities that they would be supposed to approach.